Hi, I'm Bert Baker, Baker Drivetrain. Today we're going to install a DD6 transmission in this 2002 Road King. The bike has the stock 5-speed in it. The primary drive, the starter, the right side exhaust has all been removed. The complete job to remove the existing 5-speed and install a 6-speed is probably about a 5-hour job. The actual transmission part of it, in other words, the removal of the stock transmission and the reinstallation or the installation of the new transmission, the 6-speed, is about a 30 to 45 minute job, believe it or not. So that means there's a good 4 hours spent in removing the primary drive, the starter, the exhaust, all the claptrap that prevents you from gaining access to the actual transmission. Okay, so left side transmission removal. I'm going to go ahead and remove the drive pulley. Before you can loosen that nut, you got to take the retaining plate off. Okay, so the big 1 7/8 inch nut. We sell the socket. It's available through us. It's available through elsewhere as well. The key is it needs to be a deep throat socket to clear the main shaft here. Keep in mind the threads here are left-hand threads, so we need to go in the tighten direction to loose. Okay, got that nut off. With that nut off, you go ahead and grab on the pulley, pull it off, set it aside. I like to tuck the belt behind the main shaft there just to get it out of the way. While I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the retaining ring from the ratchet pawl, as well as the centering pin for the ratchet pawl. The centering pin requires a Torx 50 bit. Sometimes I can't find my Torx 50 bit, so I can improvise with a 1/4 inch Allen bit. Okay, there's the centering pin. I'm going to go ahead and remove this teeny weeny retaining ring. I spread it wide open and got it out of there. It's not going to be reused. The washer here will be reused, and we'll touch on that at a later time. Okay, the next step is to remove the inner bearing race. Harley's used this style inner bearing race from 1985 to 2006. It worked well. One of the shortcomings is under higher power applications or higher mile applications, this bearing will walk. Typically it walks inboard, and you will know it when it's walked when you go to try to put this tool on to allow you to remove the race. As you can see, the tool won't go on behind the race to allow you to grab and draw it off. So I have a little trick I'm going to show you on the other side that will allow you to get this off. One of the common ways in the field for people to get these off is to take a cutoff wheel, make a little incision there across there, and effectively crack it in half and allow you to draw it off. The problem with that is quite often the cutoff wheel goes into the main shaft, carves a big line in the main shaft, and then the main shaft from that point is junk and can't be reused or resold or whatever. So with that, let's go over to the other side, continue the removal of the 5-speed transmission from the right side. I'm going to start the gear set removal process from the right side by removing the oil spout to get it out of the way. It'll give us clearer access to remove the top cover and then the pillow block shift drum assembly that resides right under the top cover. With the oil spout out of the way, you can see we got clear access to the top cover screws. There's 5 of them. Get that top cover out of the way, make sure and take the gasket with it. And we have the shift drum and pillow block assembly right there in plain view. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 4 screws that bolt it to the top of the transmission case. I'm going to go ahead and pull those 4 screws out just to make my life easier. And after that, we're going to show you a little trick to get the ratchet pawl out of the way. You want to get the ratchet pawl lever out of the way to allow free clearance to get the shift drum pillow block assembly out of there. There's a small spring that keeps the ratchet pawl claw in place on the shift drum. What I'm going to do is move that spring up, push it out of the way carefully, and that allows you to flip the lever back. And with the lever flipped back, that shift drum pillow block assembly comes right off. One thing to note is the shift drum pillow block assembly mounts to the top of the transmission case and is located with 4 dowels. Quite often those dowels will pull out and stay with the pillow block. So when you remove the shift drum pillow block assembly, just inspect that all 4 dowels are in the case. If one is stuck in the pillow block there, take it out, stick it back in the top of the case, because you'll want those there for the DD6 shift drum assembly installation. Okay, with the top stuff removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the side cover and the door bolts, and let's rock and roll. Take the side cover assembly, which is the clutch actuator, and the gasket off the door. This is the throwout bearing and slinger assembly. Go ahead and remove that as well. I want to go ahead and take the shift fork rod and shift forks, get them out of the way. Feed it out the door, remove it as such. Take the forks, there's 3 of them, get them out of the way. Another thing you want to do at this time is go ahead and remove the speed sensor. The DD6 builder's kit comes with a shim that goes underneath that speed sensor that spaces it out correctly relative to the gear teeth that trigger that sensor. A thing to keep in mind is the proximity of the end of the sensor relative to the gear teeth needs to be about 40 to 60 thousandths for correct speedometer function. If you were to reinstall the speed sensor without the shim provided with a DD6 kit, the end of that sensor would contact the gear teeth. It's going to wipe out and destroy your speed sensor. So while we're thinking about it, let's just get it out of the way right now. And it's an O-ring slip fit, and so once you remove that screw, you just work it out of the hole, set it aside, put the screw over here, and it's all staged for reinstallation. At this time, we're going to go ahead and remove the door bolts. There's 6 of them. As pointed out earlier, on the left side, the inner bearing race had walked into the main drive gear. And here's a neat trick to allow you to get the removal tool behind that inner bearing race to allow you to pull it off. Reach inside there, push over the gears, in other words, engage them with adjacent dogs to allow you to lock the shafts. With more than one gear engaged at once, it fixes the shafts from rotating. And what I'm going to do is take a 1 1/16 inch socket and loosen this nut on the main shaft. I'm going to remove it actually. Okay, underneath that nut's going to be a little washer there. Go ahead and remove it. Set it aside for now. All right, dead blow hammer. I love dead blow hammers. They're gentle, but they exact a nice force. And in this case, we're going to tap the end of that main shaft to move it over, which will allow us the room to get the removal tool underneath or behind that inner bearing race. And you'll see the amount of threads sticking out of that bearing. What I want to do is I want to force with the dead blow hammer that main shaft inward, roughly 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch. Okay, you can see that the main shaft has moved. It's shifted over to the left. With that, we'll go back over to the left side and we'll use our inner bearing race removal tool, get that inner bearing race out of the way. Okay, I have the inner bearing race removal tool. Before using this tool, I like to go ahead and put some anti-seize or WD-40, whatever you got on these threads, because these threads work really hard. The race has a significant amount of press onto the main shaft. Previously, you saw that we were unable to get the race removal tool behind that race by using the trick on the right side and forcing the main shaft out slightly. It allowed us to get the tool on here, and then it allows us to remove the inner bearing race. All right, lights out. That's how it works. Continuing with the gear set removal process, I'm going to take my dead blow hammer, reach across the bike, tap the end of the main shaft to knock the trapdoor off the case dowels. And when it gets off the dowels, you'll know it becomes loose like this. You go ahead and draw the gear set out. That's what's known as a cartridge style gear set. The shafts and gears are all mounted to this trapdoor assembly. One thing to note, the right side dowel here, it's a 5/16 split pin dowel, often comes out with the trapdoor. And so you're going to want to remove that from the trapdoor, reinstall it in the case when you get ready to install the DD6. Okay, with the gear set removed, the ratchet pawl, you rotate it down, it'll slide out like so. Boom, ratchet pawl's out of the way. The last step in the gear set removal process is to draw the main drive gear out of the left side bearing. To do that, we have tool A, as we call it. It's a plate, and the first step is to mount this plate to to the right side of the case, and you use a couple of the threaded trapdoor holes here to retain the plate. You can just thread these screws in by hand because the force is going to be in that direction. The screws just kind of need to hold it in place. This plate has a recess in it, a hex-shaped recess in it, such that when you run this draw bolt through, the hex, the female hex, sits and holds your right side in place. So on the left side, in a minute, when we're over there, we can focus on the left side and work in the wrench on the left side to draw that main drive gear out. And with that, let's move over to the left side. Continuing with the removal process of the main drive gear, I have the draw rod coming through the left side here. I'm going to put the end plate on there like so, the bearing, the washer, and the nut. Okay, that feels good. 3/4 inch wrench. And you can see incrementally that main drive gear is being drawn through that bearing. All right, you see that main drive gear just pop through like that, and it's pulled through. I'm going to go ahead while I'm on the left side here. I'm going to remove the sprocket spacer seal and the left side snap ring and the left side bearing to get it ready for the DD6 installation. I'm going to pop that seal out. This retaining ring for the left side bearing is a very large retaining ring. You can remove that retaining ring with a big set of snap ring pliers, but I don't advise it. I highly advise the Viking set of locking snap ring pliers. And that's how it's done, son. All right, we got that ornery bastard out of there. One neat thing about Harley cases from a service standpoint is that this bearing on the left side, if it's not excessively heat cycled, can be pulled out with your fingers. And I got it. Boom. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clean up the case, get it ready for the DD6 hardware. Oh, before I do that, I'm going to remove this ratchet pawl seal because one's provided with the kit. Got all the hardware off of there. Got the main drive gear out, and with that I'm going to move over to the right side and we'll get ready for the DD6 installation process.